Boris Johnson blocks Priti Patel's liberal migration plans for Ukrainian refugees. We sit down with a pro-free speech comedian Konstantin Kissing about the current situation of his family in Ukraine, and this is Disrupt. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Disrupt. Today's Monday, the 14th of March 2022. So, we know that there's a bit of a tension right now in Whitehall between Downing Street and the Home Office, specifically between Boris Johnson and Priti Patel. Started as a series of rumours and gossips over the last few days, and now we have official Downing Street sources and the other side confirming certain things, but they're still denying a personal row between the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary. So, there is a lot of backlash right now in the mainstream media and the liberal side. People saying Priti Patel is not doing enough for the Ukrainian refugees. The reality is, you've already seen publicly that the government are just all over the place. They're coming up with these very technical plans, which I'm pretty sure they think it works. For example, getting people in this country to voluntarily put their name forward so that they can match with someone in Ukraine like Tinder, and then they bring him here with no proper vetting. But the plan is to vet, but it's quite tricky. You shouldn't just vet the Ukrainian people who are coming here. You should also vet the people who are going to be hosts. Matt Hancock is going to be using his home to host. I'm pretty sure Ukrainian refugees should also vet Matt Hancock. But the reality is Boris Johnson and the Downing Street team are currently opposing a very, very open border policy put forward by Priti Patel. So Priti Patel and the Home Office are going for a more open border policy. It's actually the hardliners are the Prime Minister and his new team. Steve Barclay, apparently, the new Chief of Staff to Prime Minister and Downing Street, number 10 Downing Street, are opposing these plans. They're becoming a hard line on the migration policy because, well, I'm sure they realize that there's a lot of current issues without being heartless against Ukrainian refugees, because you still got the Dover boat situation, you still got the housing situation, you have a lot of asylum seekers who are still on the waiting list, and the UK are making an effort to help the neighbouring countries and Poland and the others with resources, with humanitarian camps and everything. On top of that, the UK government are already willing to bring some Ukrainians to the country. That's already said. Now, how you do it does matter. Now, there is one proposed policy by Priti Patel, which is allow currently Ukrainians who are here on permanent visa, they are now allowed to bring their family members and relatives from Ukraine. But Priti Patel wants everybody who are here from Ukraine right now, even on a temporary visa, to be able to bring their relatives. So that doesn't really allow checking and vetting. Now, this is nothing against, it's not about prejudice or saying, oh, all Ukrainians are now dodgy. So if you say, I'm pro-vetting, that means you hate Ukrainians. It's not about that. It's just basic common sense, especially for national security and just generally speaking, just common sense. So this is currently the situation. And fascinatingly enough, Downing Street are slightly kicking up, but they're trying to be nice about it. This is according to Sam Coates and Sky News. So one of them essentially have gone to Sam Coates from Downing Street, from the Home Office side, saying the problem is number 10, the Prime Minister and Steve Barclay, who are personally slapping this down, Priti Patel's policy. A Tory source has said that some people in number 10 have been more hardline on migration issues than many expected. And by some people, they mean Boris Johnson, Steve Barclay, and a number of people who are now running the machine. They've got their new team. Quite impressive, but they can't lose the PR game here because you're just going to play into the hands of Hugh Grant and Keir Starmer and Diane Abbott and everybody else. It's not a good idea. You need to sort out the policy, make sure there is actual checks and balances, and make sure you actually still come across as compassionate. The UK can't lose this game because the European Union are trying their best to be the new compassionate family. It's all based on lies. They're all sitting on a throne of lies because the EU are currently running out of money. So they are thinking, well, how do we help the Ukrainians without essentially dividing the continent even more? Italy and France are worried and concerned about the financial side of it. So Macron, for example, is the new plan is to print more money and get more borrowing sorted from the European Union side. So Brussels are going to, von der Leyen is going to go print more money, borrow more money internationally. Now, Italy and France and certain countries are concerned about, is this going to be divided equally between the member states, 27 member states, or not? So some, the normal members are pro this idea that, yeah, let's do that. Some are saying, well, no, it's not fair. If I'm over there at the top of, I don't know, the Nordic countries, and I'm Scandinavia, but I'm not really doing much in that sense, why should I pay? Some people are saying, well, let's just basically allow the countries who are richer, like France and Germany, to pay. Now the French and Italians are kicking off saying, well, that's just not fair. They don't know what they're doing. Who's going to be paying for this bill? Why are you printing money? Why are you borrowing even more? Why was there no actual infrastructure in place? I mean, of course, there's no reason for them to do it. There's no unity, and there's no long-term planning in the European Union anyway. And they're too busy trying to create their EU army. So this is why the whole thing is collapsing. But they're still trying to win the argument, like Jeremy Corbyn, that we are the compassionate ones, and the British government, the British society is heartless. No, we're not heartless. We're not a member of the EU. There's a difference. Just because you're not a member of the EU doesn't mean you're heartless. Now, I sat down earlier with a pro-free speech comedian, Konstantin Kissing, who has obviously a Russian background. He's got family and relatives in Ukraine, and so obviously he knows the situation personally. But I sat down with him to ask him about the current phase and narrative right now in the West. I think it's because of the rise of social media as well. We're getting a lot of access to information, but not really verified. So everything's tribal. You're either getting the Russian propaganda and believing everything about the West and Ukraine is just false and fake news, or vice versa. Everything that the NATO side, Ukrainian side are giving you, you believe, and everything that's coming from Putin, or well, everything that's coming from Putin is propaganda, but everything that's coming from the non-Ukrainian side is almost basically just everything's fake news. So there is no, of course, nuance or balance. So I asked Konstantin why he thinks that's the reason that some people are unintentionally either very ultra NATO, pro NATO, or accidentally pro Putin.
What I do think we're seeing is that a lot of people don't know what to think about anything anymore. And I think it's a product of probably the last 6 or 7 years since Brexit, since Trump, etc. Like there's this feeling like we've lost our consensus reality. And I think a lot of that is to do with the social media, as you say. I think a lot of people feel that in seeking to understand where the mainstream had gone wrong, they've actually ended up in a position where they don't know anything that's right anymore because they don't know what to believe. And so I think one of the reasons is that a lot of people now, sort of everything is now in a box. So I think we are in a position as a society now, particularly us, the very online people, where we're constantly having to try and formulate where our space is in relation to all these sorts of claims. And if you don't have a grounding, as I happen to have just randomly on the issue of Russia and Ukraine, it's very tempting to go off the rails. And I think COVID really emphasized that.
Well, I saw what you said on Question Time as well, and I heard it from a number of people as well, actually from Russia, who are angry at Putin. The people who said, let's just have faith. In about half an hour, someone from the top will basically assassinate Putin randomly, and of course that's not likely to happen. And some people also say because of that. In fact, Ukrainian and Zelensky and all these guys being too brave now. You kind of the best case scenario maybe is a fake Russia victory in towards these, and say so Putin could go back and say, oh yeah, we didn't lose. And then so we could actually completely stop the conflict. Is that what you think, or is there any kind of similar situation that would be an ideal kind of outcome rather than
chaos? I try not to say what I think should happen because it immediately becomes like you're saying, well, the Ukrainians should give up and lay down their arms and surrender. I don't think that.
Yep.
Like I say, if I were there,
Mm.
I'd be fighting to
Yep.
defend my country and to defend my home. But at the same time, I'm just putting the question out there:
Mm.
what is being achieved in this moment? Because I think the Ukrainian plan was, well, look, if we put up a strong resistance and we defend ourselves, well, there's two things that could happen. One is we might actually just win,
Yep.
which hasn't happened, unfortunately, or we might prolong this enough that the West sees how bad things are getting, that they might start giving us things that otherwise they were reluctant to do,
Yep.
and then we can actually win. I don't think that's going to happen, Maya. I don't think the West is going to give.
Right.
You know, we saw, for example, Poland tried to give its planes to Ukraine,
Oh, they kicked
and
off.
Biden stopped it
Yeah.
because he's worried about potentially starting three. So the West, while we can all do the hashtags and the Ukrainian flags in our bios and whatever, I don't think we're going to offer the help Ukraine needs to actually win this.
At least
And my worry, if that's the case, then is they're probably not going to win this war, and all that we're doing is more people are dying. The bitterness that rightly Ukrainians feel towards Russia will only intensify. There will be atrocities on both sides, which will antagonize those two nations and those two groups of people against each other even more. So it's a really bad situation. How it gets resolved, it's way above your pay grade. All I'm saying is, I think it's a difficult situation. If you look at the military, what's happening on the ground, Kiev is about to be encircled. The Ukrainian army in the east of the country, which was defending against the push from the two breakaway regions, that's about to be encircled potentially as well if Kiev gets taken. And then so while I think we should, I don't know, celebrate is maybe the wrong word, but I respect what the Ukrainians are doing.
Praise them. Yeah.
These are people who are defending their country. I have no criticism of. Look, that's not to say they haven't done things wrong, and historically and whatever. There's been things but right now I'm not in a position to criticize people who are defending their homes.
Well, thank you so much, Constantine, for coming on the show. There's a backstage longer interview as well, which will be on the website later tonight, I believe, for those of you who have been supporting this channel. Thank you so much, by the way, for everybody. Also, don't forget, send your news in your world stories to lacey at mytc.co.uk. At the end of each episode of Disrupt, we're going to be doing, over the next couple of days, we're going to start as we gather all the stories. News in your world. Basically, if anything positive, we want to end the show on some positive notes. So if you have any happy news, whether it's personal or something local, regional, or something we missed probably nationally or internationally in the news, but if there's even an achievement in your life or shout out to something, that will be good to use there to end the show on some sort of happy note. Send it to lacey at mytc.co.uk, and it's called News in Your World. And make sure you attach any photos or videos that's related as well, so we could actually have evidence, right? Evidence. We'd like evidence. So thanks again. But today's happy news, let's just say, before we start the news in your world, is I've just literally got the notification on my phone that all international health restrictions have now been dropped. So domestic restrictions, obviously, they were phased out quite recently. Now all international travel restrictions as well, it's all gone. There's no such thing as new normal. We have gone back to the old normal. So let's celebrate. Let's be happy about a bit of normality, right? And a bit of a happy and positivity. So thanks again for everybody for supporting us. And I've received so many emails from you guys, by the way, on Disrupt. Great feedback. I'm going to be improving this show every single time. Also, I'm sorry that it was delayed today. We had some issue with the editing of all the interviews and everything else. But from tomorrow, we'll be on time, 6 p.m. Thanks again for watching. Subscribe to the channel. I'm Maya TC, and this was Disrupt.